Hey, recently I was thinking about my formative experiences with Doctor Who. I mean, Doctor Who was something I was aware of as a kid. I saw the first episode of Time in the Rani, for example, last episode of Logopolis years earlier, and somewhere in between, The Trial of a Time Lord. I was sort of aware of it, but I was a passive viewer, a casual. Star Trek was my thing, not Doctor Who. And then one day at school, I met this kid in my class called James, and I remember he sort of changed my outlook on things. Really, he said, "Hey, do you want to come back to my place after school and watch a bit of Doctor Who? I've got some of the serials on VHS." And I'd be like, "No, no, no, I don't. I'm not really into that." But he'd insist, and I'd go round to his place, and we'd watch a bit of Doctor Who, and he had magazines that detailed the designs and the artwork for the aborted 1990 series, and he'd say to me, "Oh, this was a show that was peaking when it was axed, and it was terrible that Sylvester McCoy was taken off the air. Don't you think?" And I was, "Oh, I'm not really interested. It's not. No, I respect that you like it, but it's not my thing." But he said, "No, come on, you know." And he'd induct me into that world. He'd funnel information into me, and he showed me the key serials, and I was intrigued enough to go home and fill in my back catalogue by watching the old shows in chronological order on a satellite channel called UK Gold. And yeah, I was thinking about it the other day. I was thinking about the fact that in the mid 90s, James really, was the guy that got me into Doctor Who. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think I'd be watching it today. I don't think I'd have bothered with the revival in 2005. I wouldn't have seen any of Russell's original shows. Wouldn't have seen any of Stevens. Wouldn't have seen any of Chris's stuff either. And the night, the 25th of November, the night that the Star Beast was on, I wouldn't have stayed in to watch it. I suppose I would have been out, perhaps in the pub with friends. Still, yeah, James got me into Doctor Who. Old Jamesy Wamesy, the J Bird, the J Machine. Good old James. He really was a take a sip of water, compose myself. Well, Roussel, I'm not in a good way. I have to tell you, I've just seen the Star Beast, and almost immediately afterwards, I had very violent stomach cramps. I had to rush to the bathroom. I was sick, diuretic, and it could have been the sausage and tomato pasta bake I had before the show. I don't know, but as a comic conceit, let's imagine for a moment that it was, you know, your thing that did it. So you're back, aren't you? You're well and truly back, in the broadest sense, and yeah, I mean this was an episode that had some of your hallmarks for sure. It was based on a story by Pat Mills and Dave Gibbons, but a 1978 comic strip. But it was seamless, Russell. The way that their writing and yours, their visualization of the story and yours merged, was quite extraordinary. I couldn't see the join. And I have to say, because I couldn't see the join, I'm going to make a few assumptions in this review. So I'm going to assume, for example, that it was Mills and Gibbons' decision to concentrate on identity politics and make the show, make the story didactic in that sense. And that was very forward thinking of them. That was very prescient for 1978. I mean, I thought, identity politics, transgenderism as we understand it today, a push to show the disabled in an empowered light. That was the sort of thing that we think about now in the 2020s. But no, it was great to know that was also on the agenda back in 1978, and that those writers were at the forefront of doing that. I guess you had to wait all of this time to adapt it, because it's only now that it's so far ahead of its day, so far ahead of the thinking in the late 70s. It's only now television sort of caught up with that comic. If you'd written it, your detractors would say things like you'd started with trans as a superpower on your whiteboard. You've got to ride around that and crowbar that into what otherwise would have been a very simple and straightforward story about a crashed alien being hunted down by sort of interplanetary police. With the great twist that the alien in question, the Meep, is a cuddly little beast that turns out to be a malevolent intergalactic warlord. So that's funny. It's a good joke. It's a very good joke. And Miriam Margolyes was great as the Meep, wasn't she? Her voice, she's perfect for that sort of voice acting role. She was both a cute, embryonic ET, and a completely believable tyrant. Not everyone can pull that off. Excuse me, I need a bit of some water. I'm really sore. It's the worst kind of thing to vomit up, a sausage and tomato pasta bake, because it actually does look like you churned up guts when it comes out. Looks like you might be bleeding inside. Maybe I am bleeding inside. Do I look pale? Do I, Roussel? I don't feel good. I may not last this review. I know that will upset you, but I might not last. So, look. You were setting a trap for critics here, weren't you, Roussel? You, Mills and Gibbons. You were setting up a trap, because if anybody said, "Oh, you overloaded it with the messaging, you made it too woke, you made it too woke and didactic," then you can say, "Well, you're all bigots. You're bigots, and that's why you didn't like my choices. You're bigots, and that's why you don't like a story constructed around a pun. Namely, you know, being non-binary is the key to saving the universe. Literally. Credit to you for that one, Russo. That was really good. Very clever. But old Donna, she couldn't, by virtue of being just one thing, she couldn't hold the dual matrix consciousness thing that we'd all forgotten about because it's from a story 15 years ago in her mind. But her non-binary daughter, Rose, different matter. Can be both the yin and the yang. The alpha and the omega. Great. Good thinking. Very good. It wasn't just the trans community you were batting for in this episode. Also, the disableds. Good to see the former market trader from EastEnders in this one as the unit scientific advisor who had weapons in her wheelchair. We all do, she said. Rockets and stun grenades and things like that. God, being disabled is cool, isn't it? So cool, being disabled. I wish I was disabled. And we see now, of course, why, given this emphasis, that you couldn't have Davros be disabled. Even though Davros is technically a victim of an accident who is supported by his own technology. It's actually Davros's hybrid state is a symbol of his own Machiavellian genius. But you read it literally and went, oh, he's disabled, kind of an evil disabled character. Not when I've put, an empowered disabled character in the show. That would be hypocrisy. That would be madness. And you weren't really consistent on the whole representation thing, were you? I mean, you were different when it came to actually representing the previous Doctors, the ones that you presumably felt obliged to acknowledge in a sentence. And you did acknowledge them, but in a funny sort of way, The 11th Doctor was Bow Tie Man. The 12th was a Scotsman. It's not a Scotsman. Chris made the same mistake. It just has a Scottish accent. He's an alien, Gallifreyan. You know that because you're the fucking showrunner. And the 13th Doctor was a woman. That's it. Just a woman. It's not very specific, is it? You didn't describe the other two as men. So why did you describe the 13th as a woman? I don't really understand that. I've got some better shorthand for you. I would have called 11 a student entertainments officer, 12 a curmudgeon, and 13 a holiday rep. And I think that would have done the job nicely. But the Doctor's trans too, I suppose, in a way, because you made the point at the end of saying, speaking through Rose, that the Doctor was what was it? I've got it written here. Male presenting Time Lord. A male presenting Time Lord. Not actually male when he regenerates into a man, or not a woman when regenerates into a woman, but woman and male presenting. That's an interesting change in emphasis, very inclusive change in emphasis, of course. But it was that kind of show, wasn't it? Now, I'm only going on about this stuff, Russo, because I know you already. There are people watching this video going, "Oh, he's fallen into the trap. He's one of those. Oh, he's a bigot. He's a bigot. I'm only putting my emphasis on these things because you did. You sort of made the story kind of secondary in that respect. I mean, it wasn't much of a... This, by the way, could have been longer, this episode, I think. It could have breathed a bit. It moved along too much at a lick, and you've got Murray Gold back and with his sort of, hyperactive musical stylings, very intrusive score. That was his hallmark before, and he's not a reformed character any more than you are. And so you have a show that moves along at a lick but feels kind of rushed. The only time you pause in this show is not to expand on key plot points or to develop characters, because Donna's daughter Rose had no character in this episode. She was just a trans character. That's the problem. You made her identity her character instead of giving her a character. I would have liked to have seen her character develop. I'd have liked to have seen the incidental characters fleshed out a bit. I'd like to have seen some relationships more than just sketched in, so that I could have invested in these people and given two fucks about Donna's family. I didn't care about them the first time I met them, and I still don't care about them. So it was all too fast, I thought. I liked the Meep. I thought the Meep was great. I'd like to have spent more time with the Meep. And I'd like to... Wouldn't it have been nice to have a few little hints that the Meep might be evil before it just sort of flipped and went from cute to malevolent? I mean, you're the showrunner now. Disney are paying for this shit. You can do whatever you want. Can't you make the episodes as long as you want? It's not in the contract, is it? It's got to be an hour. Surely. But no, the episode did stop from time to time, and when it did stop, it stopped so that we could have a moment of diversity and inclusion. I mean, there is a principle called universalism, which you may or may not have heard, in which there is a utopian assumption that in an enlightened society, in an enlightened universe, as it were, the differences between people, between, say, binary and non-binary people, between the disabled and the abled, are normalized by being reduced to the incidental. There is not this great emphasis on difference. Rather, there is an acceptance that we are all of equal value, however we look, however we are made, as it were. And as a consequence of that, we can just take it as read. We normalise it by not making it an issue. And that's the universalist principle. And that's what we had, or that's what many of us aspired toward before we had intersectionality, before we had the politics of identity, in which exceptionalism became the celebrated thing, not universalism. Now, I like universalism because I happen to believe that that is the reality of how we are as a species. And if you believe it too, Roussel, it means that you don't have to waste time, politicizing your narrative, as it were. You can concentrate on telling great stories. But I wonder if you know how to do that, Roussel. I don't know. I I don't know if you do, I don't know if you don't. But I suspect you don't. There was evidence in the Star Beast that you still can't tell a serious story, strong and true. It was a bit on the camp side, wasn't it? I mean, the new TARDIS looked great, but it had a coffee machine. Why? Only so that Donna could spill a cup of coffee on the TARDIS console and cause it to malfunction. Is the TARDIS really that vulnerable to a cup of coffee? I mean, I know it's supposed to be a joke, but you know, this is what you do, isn't it? You sort of you turn flippancy into plot points. You remember what I said to you, Roussel? Camp destroys drama. And so it was proved once again. So, look. Not much more to say. There are some questions. He didn't answer the question of why the Doctor regenerated new clothes and all. That suit regenerated with him. New face, new suit. And that suit came preloaded with a sonic screwdriver. It came preloaded with a wig, a horsehair wig, a pair of glasses. Was all of that in there when he regenerated? How does that work? And was Donna speaking sort of figuratively when she was lying in his arms and said, "When did this face come back?" You see, initially I thought she might mean, "Oh, this face is in your face, in oh, when did this face come back? As when did my old friend return? Why?" She must have, I thought, meant it that way because she couldn't possibly know that his face had changed in any way. There was no scene in which she was briefed on the change. She didn't remember the Doctor anyway. But later there was a scene after she got her memory back. She did know all about his previous incarnation. She knew he'd been a woman, for example, and I missed the linking scene where she was given that information. So maybe it was longer before. Maybe you cut things out, but that didn't make any sense. But look, let's concentrate on the positives. The TARDIS looks great. And that concludes this review of the Star Beast. I mean, you know, the world revolving around Catherine Tate's character, Don. Only you really could ever believe that we wanted to revisit that story or that family. You know, this show was a monument to yourself, wasn't it, Russell? If we're being honest. Very self-indulgent stuff. Calling Donna's daughter Rose self-indulgent stuff. Just how it's going to be going forward. Really unwell. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Maybe see you next week if it isn't, serious. But